Howdy, soldiers. I was gone for a month, I chopped off all my hair, got a new tattoo, got a new job, and basically became a whole new person. Sorry for not being here for a while. March was one of the busiest months of my known life, and April is not showing any signs of slowing down. If you were a good ally, then you would believe me when I tell you that I've been a busy woman. As I film this, it is 9 days into April, and I have not finished a single book yet. However, I did somehow manage to read 7 books in the month of March, and it's been March madness over here. Like, I finished a sequel that I've been putting off for like 4 years, and then I also read some spicy demon shenanigans, and I also participated in the Trans Rights Readathon, so we gotta go over what I managed to read for that. There was fae, there was fantasy, there was found family, and I would love to talk about it all with you today, so without further ado, grab a drink, grab a snack, and buckle in, and let us go over the 7 books that I managed to read in March. If you're new here, my name is Rachel, and I am an absolute slut for a fairy novel. I love fae fantasy books, and so when this one came upon my radar last year, I was locked and loaded for the day that it came out, and I'm so glad that I picked this one up. First up is the charmingly cozy fae fantasy quest adventure novel that was Green Teeth by Molly O'Neill. If you don't know, in fae folklore, there is the figure of Jenny Green Teeth, who is a kind of lake monster who, dwells in the reeds and might drag you down to drown you if you're not careful. So in this historical book, we follow a Jenny, as in the Jennies are like a race of fae, but we follow this lake monstress as one day an angry mob throws a witch into her lake, and instead of eating her, she decides to save her. After finding out that this healer woman, who does have a little bit of her own magic, it was thrown into the lake because of a new pastor in town, Jenny and Temperance team up with a goblin merchant named Brackus, and the 3 of them have to go on a quest in hopes of purging a malevolent evil and saving the magic of Britain. This is like if the vibes of Legends and Lattes had a love child with Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. I love Jenny as our main character. She is so charming and perfectly unsettling and very passionate about lake maintenance. Hey, look, we all gotta have our hobbies. Can I eat it is a very large part of her vocabulary. It's a cool take to have an adventure quest from the perspective of somebody who isn't human, and like a large part of Jenny both developing but also coming into herself is realizing that as she spends more time around Temperance, she forgets that she's a fae, and she kind of berates herself for forgetting that she was ever not human. And it feeds into this theme of magic dying and how the fae every year become less and less, and how it's a loss of community. The one scene of them all kind of confronting this when they're on the Isle of Skye was so potent and so heartbreaking, but also, hey, this is supposed to be a cozy fantasy, and what does cozy fantasy even mean anymore? Because I'm over here at the end of this crying over the death of a unicorn like a goddamn child. I'm also happy to report that the one possible issue character, aka the greedy goblin character, is not an anti-Semitic stereotype. Thankfully, Brackus is absolutely wonderful, and he transcends any of the original stereotypes that were put upon him. And I love him as a character. He's so funny, and he's such a grounded part of this trio. This book surprised me by being a lot more about friendship and motherhood than I was expecting, but it's also about fighting for your family and this quest of perseverance. And it was really, really beautiful. The ending got a bit dark there for a minute, but we turned it around. So, phew. A warm-hearted book full of fae folklore and old magic. I very much so enjoyed this, and it is getting a special place on my fairy shelf. For the second one on this list, I'm gonna need you to stop what you're doing. I'm gonna need you to sit down. I'm gonna need you to center yourself. Okay, gird your loins, whatever you gotta do, because it's finally time for me to talk about The Echoed Realm by A.J. Vrana. Oh my god, it's happening! She's finally reading sequels! Have you heard the good word about Kai and Mia? It's been a whole 5 years since I first read The Hollow Gods. In fact, I even finished reading the sequel companion novel, Wild Blood, before I finished the actual sequel to the duology. I'm so sorry, Alex. So we're friends in real life, and I literally went to one of her book launches. So yeah, I feel kind of bad about that. But it finally happened. I finished the Chaos Cycle, and The Echoed Realm truly smacked me upside the head. This was a phenomenal sequel. What have I been doing with my life? The Hollow Gods follows Mia, who's a university student plagued by these dreams of a mysterious figure called the Dreamwalker, as she meets up with sometimes werewolf Kai, and the 2 of them are drawn into a mystery over some missing girls in the town of Black Hollow. And in the sequel, it's been 3 years since the events of the Hollow Gods, and things are not any better than when we left them. The tension of these books is delicious, because both Mia and Kai are very independent people who value being independent, but are still tied to one another in a variety of ways. And as much as I love seeing the two of them together, I love seeing the two of them separated, because we are forcibly separated by magical murder ghost shenanigans at the beginning, because it's more impactful to see them come into themselves and dig deep into their own power and worth when they're not relying on one another. Beautifully haunting depictions of the dreamscape, and Kai being a beast as always, and Mia freaking like, she will become the storm. Like, hell yeah, bitch. Hell yeah, you will. You're going to put aside your coping mechanisms and all your fears, and you're going to become the feather cloak wearing, bone mask wearing dreamscape baddie that you have always meant to be. From the halfway point onwards, it was just like, go, go, go. I could hear the movie soundtrack in the back of my mind. Like, the wolves descend, the ravens arrive, and chaos reigns. And AJ's told me that a lot of people don't like Mason as our third character, but I love him. He's the obvious audience insert that's looking around at all this paranormal shit going, hey, so what the actual fuck? Eventually, he does grow a backbone, and it doesn't get ripped out. Like, we love that for him. My favorite parts of this are probably Amma and Crowbar. I love them so much together. And then also the Dreamscape, Dreamwalker flashbacks were freaking sick as hell. And I really like the ending. Like, I am a sucker for a cyclical ending, but it was still nice and hopeful while still acknowledging that life is hard and you're gonna have to continue to work on your relationships and on yourself to survive. And, you know, if after the end of this book, you want to read more of Kai and Mia's story, oh, hey, conveniently, you have, where, oh, hold on. You can read Wild Blood, which is a continuation companion, so you don't have to have read the duology to read this one, and it's the same characters, but just like in a different setting and plot line and story problems, and they're both really good, so you should read them and support my friend. And if you didn't know, this March 21st to 31st was the Trans Rights Readathon, which is the third year in a row that this has been happening, which is a readathon to shine light on books by trans, non-binary, genderqueer, and two-spirit authors, or books that have those characters with those identities in them. This year, I managed to read 3 books, and they are all vastly different, so let me tell you all about them. The first one I finished was Godly Heathens by H.E. Edgman, or as I like to refer to it, The Godly Emo Express. A supernatural YA contemporary about a non-binary teen from a small town that finds out that they are a reincarnation of a god from another dimension, which, like, happens sometimes. But Jem's former self was responsible for many atrocities, including a spell that led all the other gods to also be trapped in this world, and they're not happy about it. So as Jem is trying to figure out their own identity and coming to terms with who they were in a past life and how those consequences are catching up with them, they're also falling into old patterns with old loves and are starting to wonder if maybe they are the villain after all. I feel like you're either going to love or hate this book because the voice is very specific. Jem is absolutely insufferable and so melodramatic, and honestly not that great of a person. Like, they kind of suck. That being said, this goes into a lot of things I have never seen in a YA book, and I really like the way that we explored those topics. Like, yes, we talk about the loneliness and isolation that comes from being queer in a small town, truly believing that you will never get out of your situation, and feeling jealous and hurt towards all the other people who are. Maybe the most interesting, weaponizing sex and sexuality as a way to numb. There's not sex scenes in this book, but sexuality is very front and center. And again, I've never seen this in a YA. Oh, I just kicked my ladder. Oh dear. I've never seen a YA book talk about weaponizing your own sexuality to hurt yourself or to like gain things from others, but also just a way that like they talk very openly about hooking up or about like thinking how hot someone is. And I'm like, finally, a real teenager response. A big theme of like hurt people, and like Jem is just so messy and angry and yet so hurt and vulnerable at the same time. This has really good writing, but I find Jem just so utterly obnoxious, and like these messy, complicated gods are very fun to follow along with, but at the same time, like, can you shake a god? Because sometimes I just want to take him by the shoulders and be like, just cut it out, snap out of it. Great side characters, very compelling villains, just swimming in a soup of gray morality, and nobody has brought arm floaties. This writing is so good that I'm willing to forgive the cardinal sin that this book commits, because in my own opinion, I hate when YA books drop contemporary pop culture references. That being said, we do get an Ashniko reference, and I love her so much that I'm willing to forgive that. Also a great finale twist, and, you know, to quote the Goddess of Death, now that's camp. So yeah, I would recommend this book, but like prepare yourself if you're gonna go into it. Second title is very opposite that because I finished the Queer Regency rom-com that was Trouble by Lex Croucher. As you can see, this came out in March of 2024. I was sent this by SMP, and I'm only now picking it up an entire year later. Oh, that reminds me, I was also sent Godly Heathens by Wednesday Books. I had a lot of fun with this book. It's all about a mistaken identity and found family. Emily's sister Amy is supposed to be the next governess for this wealthy family, but when Amy falls ill, Emily decides to take her place in hopes of just faking it till she makes it, stealing some things from this house in hopes to sell it for a doctor, and then just like getting the hell out of Dodge. But of course, when she gets there, she meets the master of the house and his two young teenagers and becomes embroiled in family drama and begins to realize that the lies that she's telling may go deeper than what she's telling the family, and in fact, she may be lying to herself. It's full of dramatics. There's a very dry sense of humor to the whole thing, and it has this quippy, easy writing that's like so engaging without sounding too modern. It's giving if Jane Eyre were a rom-com, but also Jane and Mr. Rochester were a couple of bicons. You have this antisocial, grumpy heroine who hates kids and will not be making friends, thank you very much, who is very stubborn, but also kind of blinded by her ideas and is like learning compassion. And then you have this very quiet and stoic Captain Edwards, who you find out doesn't talk to people because he's just really awkward and doesn't know what to do with his hands. And Emily's constantly challenging him like, hey, you have two young teenagers who need you to nut up and be a father figure to them, okay? Also some great side characters, like Alka is hilarious and Oliver is such a little shit disturber. I love him. And truly, give Mira a raise. She deserves it. And I love the girls. I love Grace. And she has a chronic illness, which is a big part of this book, along with Amy having a chronic illness. And Aster! I love Aster. This is a rom-com, but it's a very slow burn. Like, they don't even look at each other until, like, more than halfway through. And even then, the whole beginning, people are asking Emily, like, oh, like, do you like Captain Edwards? And she's like, what? No. And they're like, okay, but have you seen him with his shirt off? Now, that all being said, I did have a couple problems with it, mostly that this kind of feels like a nonsensical string of events. Like, it's just like stuff happening, but I didn't find a lot of it had a through line. And the ending felt a bit strange because our main character is just so stubbornly determined that no one is ever gonna love her, and she's so worthless and no one will ever see her for who she is, that at one point, like, I want to just like smack her and be like, girl, please get some self-worth. It went beyond a character flaw into I just find you annoying. But the ending was very cute, and I love the happily ever after that everybody gets, so I would recommend this. Yes, I would. And last but not least of my readathon books is, yet again, very opposite from any of that, because I read the smutty demon novella, The Demon's Bargain by Katie Probert, which is part of her Deal with the Demon series. And this follows witch Lenore as she enters into a bargain with the bargainer demon Romanu in hopes of getting back a family relic that is the key to her family's magic. Romanu is a side character in a couple of the other stories, and I'm so glad that they got their own book. I love Romanu. They are the best character, hands down. Fight me. I'm gonna let my freak flag fly right now and talk about how I think Romanu is the hottest one because, first of all, I mean, non-binary demons. Like, paranormal supernatural creatures from other dimensions. You think they're gonna be tied down by the shackles of gender? Like, how do you identify? Mischievous. But also, they have two sets of horns, one set of which comes out of their eye sockets. And I don't know why that does something for me. Their devil-may-care personality, pun intended, covers a wonderful, warm person who's fiercely loyal and very playful. And Lenore is this scary, prickly witch who is really just hiding how lonely that she is. She's literally the walking embodiment of a porcupine. And while the sexy times are very sexy, this book really is all about learning to accept help and building trust. And a part of the sexy times I really appreciate is that we go into what intimacy looks like for people with different bodies and who are comfortable with different terms. Although I do find it very funny that this extends to other appendages, hence, like, at one point they're, getting down to business and Romanu's horns are just shredding the bed underneath them and Lenore's standing over them being like, oh, goddamn, that's gonna be expensive to replace. I mean, nothing says commitment quite like beheading your ex-boyfriend and then getting matching tattoos with your demon lover. Well, my neighbor just came back in the middle of me saying that, so we'll see if I get a knock on the door from Strata anytime soon. Also, a quick rant, I don't know if this will make it into the video, but we'll see how generous editing Rachel is feeling. So this cover makes me laugh so hard because, girl, how are you contorting yourself? What position is this? Also, Romanu is said multiple times to have two sets of horns, and what do you know? There's only one set on the cover. This is bullshit. Okay, give me what I paid for. So those are the 3 that I finished for the readathon itself. But then, of course, I've also read other things. Number 1 being that I didn't want to give up on Katie Robert yet. So I may have also purchased The Demon's Queen by Katie Robert, aka the 6th of the Deal with the Demon series. I'm slowly building up my little spicy supernatural novella shelf. Okay, let me have this. Everybody needs a hobby. We have the 6th and final of the series, which is The Demon's Queen, where we meet Eve, who is a high-end consort who gets tricked into signing an agreement with Azazel, aka the king of hell. But it's really because someone wants to usurp Azazel and might have used Eve in order to do so. So Azazel just went, okay, bitch, Uno reverse card. And even though Eve is pretty pissed off about being stuck in a demon realm under a captor, goddamn, he's pretty sexy. Yet again, super sick demon dimension. We have a somewhat sentient house, and it's sassy as hell. We have fantastic indoor plumbing, and you're telling me I have to go to a demon dimension to find a perfectly walkable city? Unbelievable. Eve being a sex worker makes her a really interesting character to follow along with, because we have the contrast of her just thinking that this is a job and like treating it like a job, but also using it as a means of escape, but then learning to use intimacy as a way to build more trust and communication and companionship, and in doing so being able to forgive others and forgive past versions of yourself. And Azazel may look scary, but he's really trying. He's trying to keep his realm together. He's trying to make sure that all these bargains are done so ethically. He's under a lot of pressure, but he's trying his best not to be the kind of leader that his predecessor was. And like, you're doing great, sweetie. And of course, because it's Katie Robert, the spicy times were very spicy. And there's, you know, some hate sex that goes on in the beginning. But then also, there's some interesting power dynamics going on, because like at some point, Eve is yelling at Azazel and he's like, oh, she's really angry at me, and I kind of like it. But a note on the sexy times is that I don't really know if this kink fits the story. A different power dynamic I think would have fit them a lot better. This kind of like, oh daddy kind of thing just didn't quite fit in naturally. Amongst other things that did not fit in naturally. Okay, it's a real bad dragon situation, if you know what I'm saying. A prime example of always fully reading your contracts, okay? They'll get you in the fine print. And lastly is a tribute to my lovely girlfriend, because I finally read a book that she really loved last year. And I'm so happy to say I very much so enjoyed this book, because it is just as sweet and lovely and macabre and bizarre as she is. And that is The Undertaking of Heart and Mercy by Megan Bannon. And I'm not joking, okay? As soon as I found out that she also collects bones, I was like, oh baby, that's the one for me. How do I even describe this book? This is an otherworldly, macabre, Western fantasy rom-com set in a Western type fantasy town where the old gods left and the new gods moved in, but the old gods are relegated to this other dimension, and every once in a while a soul escapes, and so then you get like zombies from that other dimension, and one of our main characters is a bounty hunter who goes and hunts down those. His name's Hart. And then we also have an Undertaker whose name is Mercy, whose family cares for those who have died and properly does the cleansing rituals so that their bodies won't come back from the dead. The two of them got off on the wrong foot a couple of years ago and have hated each other ever since, but when they start writing letters to each other anonymously, it turns out that they may have more in common than they think, and they're slowly falling in love via correspondence without realizing who the other person is. This book is super weird and yet has everything that I love. We get otherworldly creatures that kind of look like horses. We get stuff on human soul hunting, old gods from other worlds, sea metaphors for death, and incredibly pathetic men. 10 out of 10. Mercy is taking on all this responsibility and these family secrets while also trying to figure out a way to live for herself, whereas Hart is grumpy with his heart of gold, and he's really just suffering from being lonely and yet also trying to be this good father figure for his new apprentice. It's all about loneliness and found family and realizing the heroes you grew up with maybe weren't as good as you remember them being. You know what books don't do enough of anymore? Yearning. Do you want some yearning? Here you go. Do you want another helping of yearning? Do you just want yearning? Capital Y, capital E, capital A, capital rest of the word yearning. Oh my god, this book does it. Her writing makes everything in the story just warm and inviting. Like, the romance is lovely. It's so cute and funny, but then also the way that she talks about death, because like death and the macabre and the afterlife are very present for everybody in this world. Mercy has such a close personal relationship with the people that she's caring for after death, and you can really tell that she cares and like wants to make sure that the afterlife is beautiful for them. And I also love how many ocean metaphors there are for death in here. Like, they call coffins boats, and the euphemism they have for dying is sailing the salt sea. I sobbed at the end of this, but then again, I am also a total sucker for a like death hallucination saying goodbye to a deceased family member that you never got to speak to at the end of things. So now all of that may sound like a little bizarre, but like I have to reiterate, this book is weird. Like the writing throws some weird stuff at you. Some of the world building we just never get answers for. It's incredibly off-putting, but like in a kind of a good way. And I remembered something that Steph from Starry Steph said, she's a friend, I'll leave her link down below. This is a pickle book. I don't know if she came up with that or if she just popularized it, but like pickle books are books that you like, but they're like kind of weird, like they leave a weird sour taste. And like this is that. Like some people are going to really love this and some people are going to find this very strange. And I find it both because I love pickles. Because like the weirdness in this book, not a deal breaker. I'll see myself out. And that's that on that. So these are the 7 books that I somehow managed to read in the month of March. And I would say I enjoyed myself a relatively decent amount. Godly Heathens really is throwing that statistic though. Goddamn. I hope this video turns out. I haven't filmed in a hot minute and I am rusty. I'm starting to reintegrate social media back into my life for better or for worse recently because I really have missed doing creative stuff. But truly I haven't been online for like a month because it's just been like bus, club, another club. I'm booked, blessed, and busted right now. I am so tired, but I mean, I think this was a good video to like get my mojo back with. Please leave down below what you read in March or what you're planning on reading in April, because like I said, I have barely read a book this month, and I don't want to look at how many books behind I am on my Goodreads goal. I just know it's not good. I'm gonna go make dinner and clean up a little bit, so please send your thoughts and prayers to my washing machine because it's been making some noises lately and it needs all the help that it can get. You know where to click to like the video. You know where to click to subscribe. I hope you guys are all having a nice day wherever you are, and I will see you all hopefully next week. Bye!